Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is November 21, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also, want to thank the great Mike Mosier of Saginaw, Michigan, for introducing me to today's guest, Max Good. Where in the heck you calling in from, Max?
I'm calling from New York City. I'm in Brooklyn right now. I'm here to show my film tomorrow evening on the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination.
How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for a human being
Yeah.
uh, has to be one thing.
No, I mean, look at just to be clear, you put the questions into the context you want.
Yeah.
Just because I say thing, you can say, oh, I'll give you things. I mean, you do what you ever you want. It's me and you versus the wording on the question. So you started off right in a great mode. You invented a new question. That's what this series is all about: inventing new questions and new metaphors. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see here. I'm not sure I can give you a unique answer on that. I'd say the best thing for a human being is nurturing love, truth, understanding, community, um, and expression.
Those are really good. That's everything we're going to talk about. Community and expression. So, what is your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Uh, my favorite forms are film and music. And I don't know if you would call the internet a form, but I've spent a lot of time on the internet since the early 90s, but it's not my favorite. I think
What year are you born?
78.
Yeah. So, music and film. That's good. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, I have to say, I think part of it is a drive to for security and
Yeah, that's
wanting to understand the environment and know what the next move should be. Or you could imagine them hunting and dealing with threats. Um, and so I think a lot of us spend time on the internet obsessively gathering information out of anxiety.
yeah. Do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate in humans or more invented?
Uh, well, I'd say it's innate, but the kind of information we have now is all so invented. It used to be a much different kind of information. If you were observing the forest for signs of animals that you were hunting or something, that's different than scanning posts on the internet and reading about obscure things obsessively. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, Max. We're going to get into film, but it's also like fly on the wall or fly in the soup. Observational cinema, direct cinema, cinema verite, all those variations.
Yeah.
Do thoughts create emotions?
Well, there, I think there are conflicting schools of thought on which comes first. Um, but I think thoughts can create emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until
I don't know what I think until I contemplate for an extended period.
It's really good. I asked Ray Bradbury once, you ever read Finnegan's Wake? He says, I got it on my shelf. What do I do now? And I said, contemplate it. That is a good word, Max, because McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Yeah, I think it's important to try to say things that you're just figuring out. You're on the edge there of figuring it out as you're saying it, and not to just uh, come out with pre-cogitated ideas.
Well, that's what this series is all about, Max. I want people to feel like they can sit and think, contemplate, and then say something. But you don't have to say something. You're putting in the questions into the context you want, and you're understanding your word understanding early on is what this is about, understanding the environment. And I have there's a car on my street with a bumper sticker, don't believe everything you think. So that's like, don't believe everything you say is almost what you said. Like, be careful about what you say, but we constantly blurb things out. Can humans think without language?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we're always thinking on a deeper level that's transcends language.
Chomsky says the language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
You can be silent, you can contemplate, you can make movements with your body, you can make expressions,
Yeah.
uh, you could smile, you could express frustration. Um,
Yeah.
you could make noises that are
Yeah.
not language, not words.
It's really good. Make noises. A guy a couple months ago, I says, what do you do when language breaks down? He says, group hug. I like make noises. Your observations, Max, of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think we're more feeling, yes. And this goes back to your first question, but yeah, I think a lot of times the feeling and the emotion will drive the thinking.
Yeah. Two questions from Alan Turing in the 1950s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Well, you're getting into the artificial intelligence topic now with Alan Turing, and I've just been reading these couple books on it. Nick Bostrom's Super Intelligence and Max Tegmark's Life 3.0. And these people scare the shit out of me. I think they're crazy. I think they're psychopaths. And I think I think you'll never create true consciousness, true life through artificial means.
It's funny because you anticipated the next question. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Uh, they can't think in the same way humans can think.
Yeah. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Meaning,
Right on, dude. That's Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He says meaning tends to last and happiness doesn't. Okay, Max, does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
yeah, I think we're creating it.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Uh, Yeah, I'd say speed of thought is faster.
There's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. So Audre Lorde, I like your films and how I've just watched the trailers, but I really like how you're really in this realm of by Audre Lorde's quote. You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer said you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Ah. A new tool. Um, well, yeah, I mean, I would say something like a paradigm shift, or
Yeah.
stepping out of the norm, somehow. Assuming everything might be wrong. Uh,
Dude, that's
hey,
paradigm shift is perfect answer for me. It evokes George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic. He said, "Brother, can you paradigm?" What new toy do you suggest?
a new toy. I'm not going to suggest virtual reality goggles or anything like that. I would suggest a new toy is giving up all these toys they're offering us for a little while.
That is a good toy, man. Fasting from that crap. Okay, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Uh, I worry about um, my own little life, and making a living, and being able to express myself and continue making films. I worry about artificial intelligence and uh, people's runaway neuroses that are driving us towards the death of everything.
Max, I really appreciate your time, man. You really articulate, and I appreciate this. McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So I ask you the question that Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Uh-huh. Well, I've read some McLuhan. It's been a long time, but yeah, I always wondered. He's used as Wired magazine used him as their patron saint, and he's kind of seen as a champion of the tech world, tech utopia, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I got this message out of his work, that we humans could kind of be overwhelmed by these tools we create, and we're not ready to deal with them, and we can sort of end up hypnotized. And of course, there may be forces among us uh, who seek power, uh, who can learn to harness those tools against uh, the larger population. Um, so, yeah, what was the
Well,
question
if you
again?
that was good. He's definitely saying that. You said the word earlier, understanding the environments of what our tools create. So
Yeah,
we don't know what TV or cars did to us. We just embraced them. And
yeah. Okay.
so with the hidden psychic effects of cars, one of them is that it a solitary movement. You're in a car all by yourself. You're not like a pack of wood. So, artists like maybe David Smith, the sculptor took cars and smushed them together and called it art. He was saying something deeper about cars, but we don't see these hidden psychic effects generally from artists. Why do we ignore those hidden psychic effects? Like they're broadcasting these hidden psychic effects of our inventions. Why do humans in general ignore seeing what the artists are saying?
I think we're enjoying the hypnosis of these new toys, and I would suggest like the work of Gerry Mander, his book
Yeah,
In the Absence of the Sacred,
yeah,
um, and some of the work of Ivan Illich.
yeah.
Uh,
You're dropping
where
all the right names. They're both failed McLuhanites, dude. That's really good. Gerry Mander is really good to a point. He's a non-Finneganese McLuhanite, but this is good. But why are they? You're in a peer group. Why do they ignore that the artists are broadcasting this to us? Why is your peer group especially ignoring what the artists are really saying?
well, maybe there are a bunch of other people who claim to be artists who are also championing this stuff. And I wouldn't say which artists are you talking about.
Yeah, you're that's a good question. Which artist? Because everybody is ignoring it because we're living in this sort of somnambulous state from these toys. Do artists have moral obligation?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Well, uh, I don't know if there are any new ideas.
Yeah. It's funny because the question's rooted in a quote by John Cage, but it's actually more so the guy who invented the intermittent windshield wiper, Charles Kettering. He said people are very open minded about new things just as long as they're exactly like the old ones. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Uh, one of my early memories is being on the beach in Venice, California, where I grew up until I was 9 years old. And uh, we had this piece of like fabric. It was silk or satin or something, and I used to. They would like my mom and her friend would hold me in this piece of fabric, and I remember kind of the feeling of being on the sand on the beach with this fabric.
That is super cool. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
I think it's a blessing. Yeah.
Max, tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model. And what specifically was that impact?
Somebody outside my family.
But
Yeah.
two parts, someone inside your immediate family and then outside your immediate family.
Oh wow. Uh, um. I'll go with my grandfather, who was an interesting guy. He was a doctor, but he had no interest in kind of appearing to be respectable. He would go dumpster diving, and he drove this tiny little beat up old Toyota, and he seemed to care about more important things than, you know, superficial materialism.
That is cool. So that's considered inside your immediate family. Now outside your immediate family, same question.
Uh, we had a family friend who was uh, a boyfriend of my mom's for a while, and then kind of became like a godfather to me. Uh, Dan Kwong, he's also in LA. He's a performance artist, theater guy, and yeah, he really inspired me with uh, his work as an artist and in expressing himself. You know, he was driven to express himself.
Were you raised a particular religion?
I was raised with zero religion.
Do you pray?
Not not in not in a form I would call praying. Yeah.
If God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Uh, I'd like him to say that it's all going to be all right, or it always was all right.
Yeah. Yeah, in regards to your topic for your film you're showing, I always like I'm begging for someone in 40 years to say, "What do you want God to tell you after you die?" He says, "Who killed Kennedy?" The first thing God says is, "Hey, dude, I know, and I can tell you now." Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Evil uses people.
The real question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? Max. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. It's a lot of thoughts. A basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Huh. Well, I'd say we shouldn't be so stingy. Maybe we should empower some of our enemies. Maybe that's being so defensive as to not acknowledge them uh, is a little too adversarial.
Dude, that's American Indians, indigenous culture says your enemy is your best teacher. And Walt Whitman does it even better. I no doubt deserve my enemies. But it does go a little deeper. Nassim Taleb says games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. My friend said, well, villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. Gregory Bates in The Anthropologist says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, whoa, I did something morally and socially wrong? A lot of prompts, you can comment on any of them, but basically the question is, does punishment work?
Well, depends what you call punishment.
Yeah.
But I don't think a punitive um, a punitive perspective helps. I think it's got to be an attempt to expand understanding. I'm always reminded of this video. Some people may have seen it, of one of these serial killers, and it's like his trial, and the families get to say their little piece to him before he's sentenced or something. And one of the family members comes up and says, "I forgive you,"
Yeah.
and he breaks down crying.
Yeah. Yeah, forgiveness is the key. Mark Twain said, forgiveness is the scent the flower gives off when the foot steps on it. Okay, James Joyce was the first projectionist. Here we get into film, kind of. He's the first projectionist in Dublin. Basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction can be more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, we're using these tools to try to understand what's going on. And to make some kind of art like that, you're taking a moment out of the real world and trying to structure something in a way that expresses something you're trying to get at. And to me, that's natural. I mean, it's like telling a story.
Yeah.
It's as natural as anything else we do.
Yeah. In fact, Hollis Frampton, the filmmaker, said narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
Well, I just came across recently this theory about this anthropologist Becker and his theory that
Yeah.
we are all uh, we're motivated by our mortality, by our fear of death, and it
Yeah.
drives the production of culture, but also drives a lot of the evil in the world because other people, other ideas threaten our sense of solidity, immortality that we're trying to create with our culture and our particular traditions and forms. I think, yeah, that was a new idea for me that I just came across a week or two ago. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. But again, can you personally, Max, can you
Yeah.
forget to die?
I have forgotten before, so I can. Yeah.
That's good.
Not all the time.
No, that's good. Lewis Hine published photos of child labor in newspapers, printed matter. It basically was a tipping point to change laws. Upton Sinclair wrote a book, The Jungle. It was printed matter. It was a tipping point to change a law. Can you tell me any music, theater, art, or film that was actually a tipping point to change a law? I'm not for laws so much. I'm not trying to promote laws. I'm saying, have any of these other mediums besides printed matter actually were tipping points to change a law?
Besides printed matter, uh, I bet there are some documentary films that change some laws, but I can't think of any.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get into docs now. So, Max, tell us your journey sort of and your tipping points. You're growing up. What are you studying in high school and college? And where did you go? I want to be a documentary filmmaker. What was the tipping point where that's what I want to do?
Well, at some point in college, I was taking a lot of film classes. I was taking Italian cinema and other film history classes, and I was watching a ton of movies, renting VHS tapes at the local video store, and I realized, yeah, that's the form that connects with me most deeply, and I I had fantasies of making films, being a filmmaker, but it also seemed very hard to achieve. It's a common fantasy um, to make movies. Um, so I actually didn't hold out much hope of doing it. Um, but you know, I tried here and there to get into the film world to make things, but yeah, it wasn't until I was uh, 30, 32, 33 that I put out my first film. I mean, I took some classes, video classes, and did some like little artistic edited pieces over the years, but yeah, it took a while to actually make something that I could call a film.
What college did you go to?
I went to the University of Pennsylvania, uh, Philadelphia.
And that first film you were talking about was the bike film?
No, that's something I worked on. I wouldn't say that. That's not my
Oh,
film. I was just one of
what did you claim as your first film? The
the
graffiti?
the anti graffiti vigilante film.
Yeah. That trailer is amazing. I'd love to see the whole film. So this goes along with that, Max. Screenwriting teacher told me great art, great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Well, I think intention is important in the kind of work I've done recently. Um, I'm imagining an audience and how what kind of experience I'm hoping to give them, even if that means like a broad possibility of interpretations. Um, so yeah, I mean this uh, I see some mystery can be very powerful where people aren't sure what they're supposed to think or what the filmmaker wanted them to think. And that's something I put into this JFK film. I intentionally I wanted to kind of actually provoke confusion, and a couple people have complained and said I didn't know what I was supposed to think, and that was the intent. I mean, that was
That's
you're supposed to think for yourself.
that is heavy, man. That especially in the documentary world, they want docs are agenda. Is the fact that you pick the subject means you're already that's your agenda. I mean, there's no docs that give you the bottom line thing for yourself, except maybe Crumb, and there's a couple others that do that, like that one. Anyways, that's a really good. Yeah, to me, that's the epitome of Jean Cocteau when he said, take the first criticism on your first piece of art and exploit that for the rest of your career. So, make sure you make all the film, or not make sure, but keep that in mind, the fact that people are doing that. But Max, you touched on this. Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your audience when you're making your film?
uh, yeah, I'm thinking pretty consistently of the audience, and trying to make something that's not going to completely stump them or anger them in a way that's going to make them shut off. um, yeah, uh, but in the end, I want to make the thing basically the way I want to, uh, and hope that people can get it. But you know, it's a process with making something like this. You have to show it to people and get feedback and consider the different perspectives. Luckily, with this film, you know, we got conflicting feedback, and in some ways, that's good. It frees you up to just say, okay, I'm going to do it the way I think it should be done. I'm going to listen to the people who liked what I was going for, and not the ones who didn't. For example, we just did a screening out in the suburbs of DC a few days ago, and somebody said, "This film it's rambling, it's too dense, it's unclear," and I had to say, "Yeah, I agree with you in some ways, and some of that was actually intentional." And then somebody else stood up and said, "I love the density of this film. I love
Yeah.
how much information is and how you just throw it out there." Uh, so, yeah,
Well, that's when you know you're doing something good. If everybody loves it and everybody hates it, you're fucked. If half the people love it and half people hate it, you did something right. You know, generalization. But here's Mike Kelly, big hero, Mike Mosier's and mine, or not maybe hero, but peer. He said, making art is making your problems other people's problems. Any comment?
I agree with that on some level. Yeah, yeah, I do.
This,
It's nice to share your problems. It's nice nice to not to be alone, and sometimes maybe your problems can be productive. Maybe it's kind of a gift to share them. Yeah.
yeah. And here's Fanny Howe, a poet. The point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't. Any comment on that one?
That one, you may have stumped me on that one.
Yeah, I'm constantly stumped on that. So McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness, like knife and fork extends our teeth, shutter and a camera projector extends our eyelid. Maybe even non-tangible like religion or philosophy extends consciousness. What is the moving image camera, whether it's video or film? What does that extend for you? What humanness?
Yeah, you'd have to say it's a combination of it extends our story making language capabilities, our mouth, uh, extends our eyes, extends our memory. Um, yeah.
That's pretty good. I love mouth, eyes, and memory. McLuhan had a smart assy question answer. He goes, it extends your foot because you travel. So I spoke with Michael Apted 40 years ago. I said, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it really flourished in the 80s with MTV to the point where Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I asked this question with a bias. Can we actually learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Well, we take in a lot of information. Yeah, either way, you're taking in information fast. If you're looking at the forest, you're also taking information in fast. Um, it's a question of of a jumble of conflicting information, and kind of like that end of like that montage in Network with all the commercials and stuff, where you're seeing a bunch of crazy unrelated stuff, and it is a bit overwhelming. I think we're not meant to focus on, be thrown back and forth so violently.
Yeah, Max, the hidden question is, can humans literally multitask?
Yeah, on a deeper level than the multitasking we all do every day. I don't think so. I don't think we were made to have our attention pulled in so many different directions, and to be taking in so many unrelated pieces of information.
How'd you form your framing aesthetic? You know, filmmakers like to do this with their hands. We both are sitting in these boxes with a certain aspect ratio. But, you know, my head's over here in the corner. I didn't frame it that way, or I can take my laptop and frame myself differently. How did you develop this aesthetic for framing like we are right now? The head's in the middle, you know, balance, spacing.
Well, I didn't put much thought into this particular framing here that people are seeing with me. I sat down in the only place where there was a flat surface here where I'm staying.
But I mean, in your film making, you definitely have to decide how to frame. What informed your framing aesthetic? How did you form a framing aesthetic? What contributed to you developing the framing aesthetic that you have?
Well, I mean, I would admit that a lot of it is tied to seeing prior documentaries and films, and seeing how they do it. I'd say maybe some of it's due to my background with graffiti and looking at the world, looking for looking at little pieces of the environment.
Yeah, I've been intrigued by the word gaze because, you know, John Berger, Art of Seeing, brought up the human gaze. You know, we've tried to figure out, did humans invent their gaze, or how did that happen? My friend said, you know, you come out of your mother's womb and the gaze is you're looking at her eyes because she's going to stick her tit in your mouth and give you food. So it's like so then I don't know if you saw the film Brainwashed by Nina Menkins about the female gaze, how the male gaze has fucked everything up. And, you know, is there a difference between a female gaze and a male gaze? Then you go into Alice Guy Blanger, you know, this woman filmmaker who they blackballed out of film history. Check her out. You'll freak out because I know you've studied film for years. She was inventing narrative filmmaking when Méliès was making films. And Eisenstein went to his film of hers when he was 8 and basically ripped the Potemkin scene, the Odessa set from Alice Guy Blanchet. So did she form a female aesthetic then? Well, maybe she was looking at photographs and paintings, because that's probably what developed our, you know, even pre you seeing them in films, or all your film dudes, they probably got it from photographs and paintings. And I asked Bruce Bailey in Ann Arbor once, how'd you form your film framing aesthetic? He said, Jean Cocteau said he formed it by the way they put the knife and fork down on the dinner table. So, it's a funny thing. What do you think of this word gaze? Is there a difference between the female gaze and the male gaze? You know, uh, any thoughts on that?
I think there must be a difference. Uh, uh, it's probably just a matter of degree, or uh, you know. Uh, but yeah, I mean, we have different experiences, and uh, so it's natural the gaze.
But do you think it's more biological or more cultural? You know, because about this
Yeah.
earlier,
Hmm.
you said about understanding environments. Is it the environment you're raised in, or is it something in your DNA?
Um, I mean, I think the environment probably plays a dominant role in many ways.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think. The way we see is is defined by the culture.
yeah. There's a line that goes, "Film as an art form has been swindled by capitalism." Any comment?
Sure, it's. I mean, it's true. I mean, the overall thrust of filmmaking is that economic juggernaut of Hollywood film and TV, uh, and that's who calls the shots, and that's what most people see. Um, and where video is kind of has been democratized, uh, but making films is still pretty difficult, uh, and there are big barriers to entry in terms of resources, uh, financial and time wise.
When I asked Craig Baldwin to comment on that, film as an art form has been swindled by capitalism. He says, "Yeah, and it's our job to re-swindle it back." That sounds inspiring, but isn't that sort of like don't become your enemy?
Yeah, well, you don't have to become your enemy. You can acknowledge your enemy, or try to teach them something.
Yeah. Jean-Luc Godard told Michael Moore when he showed Fahrenheit 9/11 at the Cannes Film Festival, "This film is going to help Bush get elected." Now, it didn't help Bush get elected per se, but it galvanized pro-Bushers. With this slew of political docs over the recent years, do they more activate or more pacify?
Activate and pacify who? Who's the target? Um,
Well, yeah, you
yeah,
put that into the context you want. Yeah, because Cindy Sheehan, great anti-war activist, says we're just preaching to the choir, and there ain't even a choir.
yeah. Um, that film was huge. Fahrenheit 9/11, and I don't think it necessarily helped Bush get elected a second time. Um,
But
but
you can't control it because it galvanized pro-Bushers. But I'm just speaking in general terms. Do you feel that these kind of films more activate? Okay, I'll give you a good example. Probably the greatest political doc of all times is Battle of Algiers. The Black Panthers used it as a training film. George Bush used it as a training film. So they asked Gila, what does your film do? He says, teach people how to make films. He wasn't necessarily saying, a point of view like you were saying earlier, that ambiguity in your film. So that's the problem. Most most docs have an agenda. Does the agenda get across and activate the person, or does it just pacify him? And yuppies sit at home and watch the revolution on their well, it used to be PBS and HBO. Now they watch it on YouTube, and then they go, wow, I like what they're doing, but then they don't do anything.
Sure. Yeah, I think some films can play a cathartic pressure valve kind of role where
Yeah.
people watch it and they think they did their duty, especially liberals who watch certain genre of documentary may think that now they're aware and they are, they know about the most difficult things in the world and they're on the cutting edge, and that's all they need to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think film should challenge people more deeply than that. It should really make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you're making political films, you should really try to poke people into some sort of paradigm shift or new kind of thinking.
Yeah, that's what McLuhan discussed with Ezra Pound. We should needle the somnambulism. This shit puts you to sleep and you're trying to needle it. But, I love your word uncomfortable, challenge you deeply. John Jost made a film and a kid came up to him and says, man, your film inspired me to join the Occupy movement. And Jost went, don't blame me. So let's go to Herzog talking about truth. He said emotion. We're talking about a bunch of Michiganders too. Well, you're not really. Are you a Michigander? No, you're a.
No, I spent some time there
Yeah,
as a kid. Yeah.
but here's Herzog saying emotional truth. That's Ken Burns. You watch Ken Burns film, and you and your parents cry. The Money Shot. Then you watch a Michael Moore film, and it's physical truth. You get a belly laugh. And Herzog's ambition is to have ecstatic truth. Like monks having an epiphany. Joyce called it epiphany in everydayness. Then I sort of even added, I don't know if you read that whole manifesto Herzog wrote, but I would call one intellectual or poetic truth, like Chris Marker. You ever see Chris Marker's film Sans Soleil?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, what would you put your aspiration in truth? What would you call your truth? Which one are you kind of aspiring to probe in your documentaries?
So what were the three kinds of
Well,
truth again? Ecstatic.
you could put an adjective before your
Yeah.
own. But, emotional is Ken Burns crying.
Yeah.
Physical,
Emotional, intellectual, and ecstatic.
yeah, emotional, physical, ecstatic, and intellectual. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't have to be exclusive. You can make up your own adjective, but just sort of delving into this word truth, which you brought up earlier. I'd love to explore that.
Sure. Well, I'd say if you want to be a complete filmmaker, you'd be considering all three of these and more.
Yeah.
You know, and you might make one film that's more about intellectual truth, and another might be emotional.
Yeah.
Uh, and one film could combine different parts of each of those.
Yeah.
Um, you know, personally, I I have been drawn to intellectual truth at times, but I don't see it as the only valid form.
Yeah, Louis Buñuel says, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Now, 99% of people I say that to, they go, that's good. I like that. And one guy says, that's bullshit. If I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it. So I morphed it into the question. The cliche turned into an archetype. The journey is more important than the destination. Why do we have to seek or name a destination if the journey is more important?
It's just a natural thing to do, to put a name on something, or a reason, or a goal, destination. Um, but that's just a frame, and it can it can expand from there. It can contain infinite other ideas.
Yeah, that's the guys in Paris in the 20s changed the world forever. They were flaneurs, psychogeography. They just wandered aimlessly and had epiphanies in everydayness. And they were all digging on Eartha Kitt. Her line on truth, I would love to hear your reaction, Max. Truth is a theory that constantly is being disproved. Only lies, it seems, go on forever. Any thoughts on that one?
Well, uh, I mean, I came of age when they were teaching postmodernism in colleges, and
Yeah.
so I dealt with a lot of this stuff, and I read a lot of it. And you know, honestly, my immediate reaction was, well, of course, uh, everything's kind of relative. You can't have a ultimate objective truth, but what's next? You know, and where does that lead you? Are we gonna we gonna throw everything out? Um, so I think truth is important, historical truth, uh, and I think it's a process. It's a never ending process that you're involved in. It's it's a it's like a moral value or something, and and truth can exist in all these different forms, but yes, there is such thing as concrete historical truth that we can aim at, never get it completely, but I believe we can know things to a meaningful degree. And people who are trying to convince us that we can't, I think that's dangerous.
Yeah,
um,
you practically quoted Robert Evans. He says there are three sides to every story: my side, your side, and the truth, and no one is lying. So Marcel Proust asked the question, on what occasion do you lie, Max?
uh, I'd say in some way everything we say is a lie.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't be driven by truth while still lying.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
I'd say you got to start with the conviction. You have to start with the conviction. You can compromise it, but if you start with compromise, you're done.
In your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements, luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
Ambition, skill, and luck.
Dude, you got it nailed. I used to ask the question, is ambition based more on fear or joy? Most people would say fear. And then I read William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist, said, in Hollywood, it's all ambition. Skill and luck have nothing to do with it. T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
It's logical nonsense.
Oh, that's a good one. Logical nonsense. I like that, Max. Okay, so what was the motive of the cave artist? Your hunch or guess?
It was to express themselves and make something that would last.
Yeah, George Manupelli started the Ann Arbor Film Festival over 60 years ago. His mantra was ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas said there is no self-expression, and Cecil Taylor says I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and cultures are dominant?
I'd say it's more a vehicle of self-expression. I mean, I often say, I'm highly skeptical of technology in general, and I'd be happy to give up making films altogether if we could live in a more fulfilling society. I'd be happy to bang on a drum and do other forms if we could live in a more fulfilling society.
But yeah, are you saying that banging on a drum could be more fulfilling than making a documentary film?
Sure.
Yeah. Can art making be egoless?
I don't think so.
Is perception reality?
No.
Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Yes, I can't name them at the moment, but I believe that I have.
Yeah. Write it in the comment when you can name it so people can know what impossible thing did Max actually believe in. So tell me, Max, one element of your creativeness that's changed and one major element that stayed the same in the years you've been being creative.
Some sense of subversiveness, a sense of being an outsider. I don't know. And
That stayed the same or changed?
it stayed the same.
That's the same. Okay. What's changed?
Well, I've made much more complex forms of expression than I did before. Uh, stuff that takes years to create.
So let's go back to subversiveness. What's the roots of that? Did you get that from the way your parents raised you or on your own to be subversive?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
I'd say, kind of my greatest strength and my greatest weakness are the same thing. It's like a sense of independence or alienation, something like that. Yeah.
You mean you feel alienated, so you turn that into a strength? Is that what you're saying?
Um, yeah. Yeah.
And you mean feeling
But
alien?
it's not always still a strength. It's
Yeah,
definitely not always still a strength. It can.
right.
Yeah.
It's sort of morphing like a Mobius strip or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion
When you process it and contemplate it.
yeah. What's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
Uh, rights. Are we talking about civil rights, human rights?
Yeah, you put in the
Uh,
context you want. That's good. Yeah, there's many different rights and
yeah.
different responsibilities, but I mean, how would you differentiate between rights and responsibilities? Or is there a difference?
I don't think there is. You could say that the rights are your kind of your leeway to do what you want, and your responsibilities are what you need to do to be part of society or uh, to uh, help out. But yeah, I'd say they merge into the same thing.
What's the difference between rebellion and revolution?
I used the term rebellion not long ago, and somebody complained. Um, That's also subjective, but a revolution does seem like it transcends more than a rebellion.
Yeah,
But
I
maybe
think
maybe you need a rebellion to have a revolution.
yeah, I think rebellion is like there's something wrong, and revolution is there's something wrong and here's a new plan. Let's re-evolve.
Yeah.
You know, I liked the attitude towards the Black Label bike group. Those kids were massive to get in deep in them. That reminded me of Utah Phillips said, "Anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?"
I think each person is the only person entitled to make the rules.
Yeah.
That I mean, we can we can try to influence each other and uh, have ideas of what's right, but in ideal is that inside each person they see the need for those particular rules and create them for themselves and accept them. I mean, that's a more powerful ideal.
It's funny because the word freedom etymologically breaks down to giving oneself one's own laws. Same thing almost. What does freedom mean to you now?
Freedom. So I don't like how freedom got a bad connotation for some people on the left. It became freedom, DUMB, um, and it became a kind of a mockery of what freedom should be. They thought that the right wing, their idea of freedom was to drive a Hummer and go to Walmart and drink 2 liter of soda or something. Um, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think a lot of people on the left don't understand what real freedom is. A lot of people on the right and the left.
Yeah.
uh, and it really is a fundamental value. It's it's as important as anything else in this world. I mean, without freedom, you can never be a complete human.
Yeah, this is John Basil Barnhill, who was a socialist. Where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty. Then the film V for Vendetta paraphrased it. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. How do you personally handle false fears? Like the war on drugs. You can't have a war on drugs because drugs don't fight. And you can't say no to drugs because drugs don't talk. So these false fears, like the war on drugs or the war on poverty or the war on terrorism, how do you handle false fears?
Well, I try to remind myself that uh, people and the forces that are in power are constantly trying to play on our fears. So try to fight back,
Yeah.
saying that's part of your freedom is to reject the fears they're trying to instill in you, because it's just a classic way to control people. Um, so I think in some ways there's a way to look at death as freedom, as we are going to die, and I don't want to have my consciousness put in a fucking computer. I want to be able to die.
Yeah.
I think that maybe a time will come where they'll say, we're not going to let you die. We're going to put your consciousness in this immortal machine. But, you know, we have this time, and then we'll be released into something else. So maybe, you know, they can't scare me, you know, even if they
Good.
put my consciousness into a computer. It's not me. It's just a simulation.
That's Krasner says, I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives. So, but Max, you said these words fight back. I know it could be metaphorical or literally. You know, MLK said, hey, if he hits me, I'm not going to hit him back. Malcolm X says, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. You know, what's your tendency? Nonviolent action, or do you like if somebody hits you, you're going to hit them back?
My tendency is nonviolence. I
Yeah.
think it's more powerful, but I think violence is built into many situations already, and to defend yourself or to stand up for your freedom or to even
Yeah.
reject lies will uh, instigate the violence that was already inherent in the situation. And I don't think that's necessarily can be called violence in the same way.
If you had a vote right now, yes or no to capital punishment, how would you vote?
Of course not. I mean,
Yeah.
by the state, never. I don't
Good.
understand how anybody could support capital punishment by the state. It's an insane position as far as I'm concerned.
Great. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you. There's a line, Max, that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So I'm just curious your thought on this line. You create what you resist. I'm not saying you, Max, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see there's some truth to that. By resisting it, you may make it stronger, or you may make it manifest. It may build up against that wall that you put up.
How do you find peace of mind?
I don't very often, but uh, talking to like-minded people, talking to friends, and communicating is really one of
Good.
the main ways I find peace of mind. Yeah.
So, it's someone told me once, two people talking is the revolution. It's really been a pleasure. I got a few more and we're out of here. Thanks for your time, Max. These are 5 Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in a couple words.
Yeah.
1, who started it all?
Uh, energy.
Nice. Are we going to make it?
Yes. Yes. There's no way we can't make it.
Where do we put it?
Where do we put it? Ah, everywhere.
4, who's cleaning it up?
The same force.
Beautiful. Fifth question from Alan Watts. Is it serious?
I treat it like it's serious much of the time, and I can be very serious, but I'd say no, not in the end.
Yeah, Frank Zappa says, I'm very serious about being not serious. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Say chill out.
Chill out. Yeah, I got to tell you, you probably know her name. I can't even think of her name, but I asked her all these questions many years ago. She wrote a book about being Oswald's girlfriend. You know that
Judith,
book?
Judith Very Baker.
She was amazing. When I said, if you were walking down the street and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say? It made me cry. She goes, I love you. I mean, that was amazing. And I didn't ask her anything, but I did want to divert a little on your topic of your film. I was really impressed that you tried to get a hold of John Judge. It's a real hero. He came out of Mae Brussel. Did you ever study Mae Brussel at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I've listened to
Yeah.
some of her radio shows, and I had a friend, a good friend, who the film is actually dedicated to, because he died of a brain tumor at 35. But he was a huge Mae Brussel fan, and he even put up a website archiving a lot of her shows. And that's
What's his name?
Rob Falatico,
How do you
uh,
spell it?
Falotico. So
Very good. Yeah.
yeah, he's got a website, worldwatchers.info,
Oh yeah.
which has Mae Brussel
Yeah.
shows. Yeah,
Frank Zappa gave Mae Brussel a computer
really.
early on. Yeah.
Yeah, I was considering making a documentary about her, but
Oh, it's needed, dude.
it would be tough. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people are out there left who can talk about her.
Well,
And
Alex Constantine's book, The Mae Brussel Reader, that's
yeah,
essential, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's hard. Yeah, I mean, the main thing she taught me was to read obituaries, and she read 12 newspapers a day. And it's an amazing phenomenon. People go, why do you want to do that? Because an obituary boils down a time period concisely. And, you read the New York Times obits, you're just not really learning about that person specifically. You're learning. The best example was when Walter Cronkite died, the New York Times obit started on the front page. The first paragraph was, television is a very powerful medium. I mean, that was like, and then they go, oh, this guy was a newscaster and he loved to sail. But it was like, boom, they hit you with the essence of what was the time period this person existed in. And like the word you started off with is understanding the environments. So a couple more, we're out of here. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
over.
If a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
uh, um, I can't. I don't know if I have one. Yeah.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
They want to scent the glue in the binding.
Of your autobiography.
Oh wow. Um, Grapefruit.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Security.
It's a good answer. I never got that answer. The answer I get the most are fame, money, and heroin. Max, if you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Uh, can I jump up and let the shit hit my chest?
Of course, you can do whatever you want. That's a good answer. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
People are losing faith in the sanctity of the institutions.
Yeah. Tell me a question that remains unresolved for you.
Uh, well, if we take it back to this character, Ruth Payne, my film is about. I think it's unresolved exactly what role, if any, she had in the JFK assassination, and I still I see it on a spectrum of possibilities, and I have like my most likely one, but I'm always still kind of shifting around what it might be.
I got a great line for you when you're at your Q&As and someone asks you a question. Just go, I like to quote John Cage. That's a very good question, but I wouldn't want to ruin it with an answer.
Yeah, almost every screening I go to, somebody asks, so what do you really think?
You know what? You could go into the thinking quotes. The Marx Brothers are like in a jam and they go, we got to think. And he goes, no, we already tried that. And Cap Beefheart said, I had too much to think. And George Clinton nails it. He says, think it ain't illegal yet. Okay, how has filmmaking shaped your behavior?
Well, it's very demanding. It's since I started making films, I've become more of a hermit, which in some ways, which I don't think is a great thing. Um, yeah.
Well, here's two sort of side questions really quick. I think it's ethical for a documentary filmmaker to pay his subjects. Like Herzog admits he pays people to do things. I mean, if you're making a film on homeless people and you give them a burrito, what's the difference in giving them a $5 tip, to be in their film? What's your, your aesthetic on paying your subjects? Literally with cold hard cash or, giving them a dinner?
Uh, I don't think it's necessarily unethical.
Yeah.
Depends on the circumstances. But you're always offering something. You might be offering them a chance at fame or something, and maybe they're going to act a certain unnatural way that's untruthful because of that, or because they know they're going to be seen and judged by an audience. So I can imagine circumstances where that would seem unethical to me, but not always.
Yeah, you touched on this. I've consolidated four of the great documentary filmmakers. Like, what do you make? Alan King says actuality drama. Ricky Leacock says historical fantasies. Wiseman says reality fiction. And Grierson says the creative treatment of actuality. So again, it's that, you fly on the wall or fly in the soup. You know, what was the other one about? Uh, you're like it's in some documentary about the Brazilian street kids. So you're making a film to expose to the world what happens to these street kids in Brazil. One starts beating the shit out of the other. Do you put your camera down and stop the fight, or do you film it so that you can expose the world to this problem?
I would hope that I would try to stop the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so and there are times when maybe it's more moral to give them a little money, buy them lunch, or help them out, or intervene in their life,
Yeah.
rather than just take a cold observer approach.
Yeah. Thornton Wilder said in 1928, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. Max, you've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
It's about expression. It's about meaning. It's about feeling like I can contribute towards something better. It's about staving off discouragement and hopelessness, uh, uh, staying inspired, and trying to carry on the torch of people who inspired me. Keep the light alive.
Beautiful. What gives you the most optimism?
That when you get out there and start sharing what really means a lot to yourself, that other people meet you and you start to feel like you're not alone, that you could build something, and that it can't be stopped, that even if you feel alone, many other people out there are thinking the same things and feeling the same way.
Beautiful. Frank Zappa said, don't stop and keep going. Max, it's been an honor and pleasure. You're really articulate, and I appreciate it. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Your film screening is going to kick ass, I know. The first question was, What's the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. The last question, what gives you the most optimism, is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. He pretty much quoted that other people thing. So it's been a pleasure and an honor spending this time with another person, especially because it's you, Max. Thank you so much.
Same to you. That was challenging in a surprising and gratifying way.
Appreciate it. Even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
All right. Bye, Gerry.